All right, welcome back to Starting Your Investment Journey audio series. We've come a long way, and in this episode, we're going to be looking at the most overlooked investments, right? So now let me ask you a simple question. Imagine that two people each have 500,000 naira and they want to invest it. So they say that they want to invest it. So let's say that person A invests in a financial asset. Maybe they bought some shares, they bought mutual fund, or they bought some options. So that is what person A did. But person B, on the other hand, they used that money to buy better work tools. They use it to attend a high value conference, or they use it to improve their workspace, or to travel to build strategic relationships, or they use it to gain access to opportunities. So 5 years later, which investment produced the better return? Well, the answer is that we don't know. And that's exactly the point. Because some of the most valuable investments don't look like investment at all. So what is really an investment? At the most basic of it, like they say that the first principle, right? What is investment? An investment is anything that sacrifices resources today to create greater value tomorrow. That is what an investment is. Notice that the investment does not say that, notice that the definition does not say that stocks, bonds, real estates, or mutual fund are the only investments. Yes, they are also investments. And we've talked extensively about each of them in the previous episode. I believe that you have listened to all of them. I believe that you didn't skip anyone till now. But if you skip anyone, make sure that you go back and go and listen to them. So stocks, bonds, real estate, mutual funds, businesses, startups, they are all forms of investment. But they are not the only investment. We even talked about cryptocurrency, just the last episode before this, we talked about cryptocurrency. So sometimes the highest return investment is not about buying asset. Sometimes it is about creating a value, just like we said, under digital asset. Sometimes it is also about increasing your ability to create value. So in this episode, like I said again, we'll be talking about the investment that most people underestimate. Now let's look at some of them. Let's start with tools. Number one, tools. If you are a graphic designer, for example, imagine that you're a freelance graphic designer using a slow laptop. Every project takes longer to render. Rendering takes longer, editing takes longer, delivery takes longer. Now imagine that the same designer upgrades to a faster machine. That laptop is not merely an expense, it is a productivity asset. So if he allows the designer to work faster, to serve more people, to deliver better quality, to serve more clients, then the return may be very enormous. The same principle applies to whether they are spending money on camera, on microphone, on software, on office equipment, on internet infrastructure. The tool itself is not the investment, but the productivity increase that it brings is the investment. So let's bring this closer in the Nigerian context. Let's imagine that we have two remote workers in Nigeria. Let's say one loses several hours every week due to unstable electricity, but the other one invests in reliable power backup, maybe like a solar system. They invest in better internet. They invest in a more stable work environment. That investment may not appear on their investment portfolio. If they are listing their investment, they may not list it with it. But that investment has directly affected their productivity, their reliability, income, and career growth. And therefore, it has directly affected their ability to create wealth. And if you can affect the ability to create wealth, then it's a form of investment. So let's look at another investment that is harder to measure, is relationships. Relationship is also a form of investment. So imagine that you traveled for an industry conference. You spend money on registration, on transportation, on accommodation, and you spend money to attend the conference. At first glance, it looks like a consumption. But if that helps you to meet a future business partner, or a client, or a mentor, or an employer, or an investor, suddenly the returns becomes difficult to calculate because it can be very enormous. So travel opportunities can be a form of investment. So because opportunities sometimes it travels through people, and access frequently determines outcome. And some rooms actually matter than others. One conversation can change your entire career. One introduction can create a business opportunity. One mentor that you meet in that kind of program can save you years of mistakes. And that is why serious professionals often invest heavily in conferences, industry events, masterminds, and professional associations. Not because they just enjoy throwing money around, but because they understand the value of proximity. The closer you are, the better it is. Now, number 3, let's discuss experiences. Experience is also a form of investment. Now, of course, not every experience is an investment. So, a holiday can simply be an holiday, and that's okay. You should sometimes have time to enjoy yourself, right? So, but some experiences can help you to expand your perspective, your understanding, your competence, and opportunities. So, imagine traveling to learn a new market, or to understand a new industry, or to attend specialized training. So those experiences can compound long after the trip ends. And that is very, very important. So now you will notice something about all of these things that we mentioned. You notice that they do something, they create leverage. What is a leverage? A leverage is anything that helps to increase your output without increasing effort proportionately. So if something can increase your output without necessarily increase your inputs at the same proportion, then that's the leverage. So, for example, a better laptop can create a leverage. A stronger network can create a leverage. A good internet connection can create a leverage. A useful certification can create a leverage. A mentor creates leverage. Better systems create leverage. And leverage often accelerates wealth creation. So, these investments that we mentioned under this category, they are often overlooked. Right, most people will not list them. In fact, you will hardly hear any investment training mention them, that these are investments. And it's not because they are not investment. It's because they don't produce immediate, visible returns that are easier to measure. Right, so you can see a stock price, you can see a mutual fund balance, but it is hard to see increased capacity or improved access or improved productivity or improved relationship. Yet, these factors often create or influence your long-term wealth far more than people realize. So earlier in the series, we discussed about human capital. We discussed about your skills, your knowledge, your experience, your capability. So this episode is really an extension of that idea. So many people overlooked this kind of investment, but they helped to strengthen your human capital indirectly. So they make your knowledge more useful. They make your skills more productive, and your opportunities, they make it more abundant. So before spending money, ask yourself, is this a consumption? Consumption is something that helps you to create enjoyment today. Or is it an investment, right? So an investment is something that helps you to create future value or increase future value. Sometimes something can be both. For example, that travel, you may travel for holiday, but it also serves as opportunity to meet your mentor or to attend an industry conference. So it may serve as opportunity to enjoy yourself today, which is consumption, an opportunity to also increase your future value, which is investment. So, and that's perfectly fine if it serves as both, right? And it can serve as either one of them. So learning to distinguish between the two is a powerful financial skill. The wealthiest people often think differently about spending. So they don't just ask that, how much does this cost? Which is what is important to many people. They look at the cost. But wealthy people also look at what value can this create over time for me. So that mental shift is very important, because an expense that creates future value may actually be an investment, not an expense. So some of the best investments you will ever make may never appear inside a brokerage account. Your tool, for example, like the example we gave, a remote worker that invests in a better laptop, you may not see it as an investment, but it helps to increase your ability to earn in the future. So a tool, a skill, a relationship, a conference, a mentor, a system, an experience, these are forms of investment because they help to increase your productivity, your earning power, your opportunity, your influence, your access, right? So throughout this course, we have explored several things about financial assets, real assets, business assets, human capital, digital assets, cryptocurrency. We've learned about portfolio construction. We've learned about wealth building. But perhaps the most important lesson that should stand out for you is that wealth creation is not just a result of owning assets. It's the result of continuously increasing your capacity to create value, right? Because when you increase your capacity to create value, you expand the number of opportunities available to you, and over time, that may become the most valuable investment of all. So I hope you've learned something from this episode. So now, make sure that you put into practice what you've learned so far. Thank you very much.